We are back once again with everybody's favorite show once a week, the NBA Power Rankings, and we'll just hop right in, starting with the bottom of the barrel, the worst team in the league. And I got a new one this week. It is the Charlotte Hornets. Now, initially, I had them a little bit higher because they didn't have the worst win-loss record in the NBA. I think prospects-wise and management-wise and Michael Jordan-wise and the fact that LaMelo Ball is their only star-wise, that they should be... In fact, they have LaMelo, so they shouldn't even be in this position, but just top to bottom, James Bouknight being a bust, Steve Clifford yelling at this team for not playing defense and not giving a shit about basketball other than scoring points. This team currently in shambles, currently the worst team in the NBA. I don't think there's a lot of doubt or discussion about that. All that being said, though, that means that they're number one in the race for Victor Wembanyama, which is going to be a really interesting pairing if they can, I don't know, for some reason, cobble together a couple of good veteran players. Like, think about it. Really think about it. If you have a team of LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier, Gordon Hayward, knock on wood, injuries, PJ Washington, maybe Jaden McDaniels, whichever one they have, I always forget, and then Victor Wembanyama, as well as Mark Williams as a backup. I don't know, they bring in Dennis Smith Jr. as the backup point guard. That's an interesting team. Get a good coach going there as well. They could theoretically have something going, but you never know with the Hornets other than they're always going to do the worst possible outcome of whatever decisions are there available to them. They're basically the kings of the Eastern Conference. Coming in ahead of them at 8-24 is the Pistons, and no movement for the Pistons here. They don't have Cade Cunningham. He's gone for the year, finally confirmed. I mentioned it in the last one that it was going to be rumored. Now it's completely confirmed. He's gone. They're tanking. Killian Hayes, though, has been playing a little bit better. He has some absolutely stellar performances, hitting his clutch step back threes and whatnot, and then he kind of disappears. Jalen Duren has been everything that I said he was going to be in the draft process. The dude is a monster. He's Dwight Howard 2.0, and he's like 19 years old, an absolute beast on the glass. Jaden Ivey has been showing some flashes. Maybe they'll trade Bohan, whichever one they have, Bogdanovich, get a couple more first round picks, but the Pistons are still in tank mode. Ahead of them is the Spurs, and hey, the Spurs are back to playing teams competitive again, so they're going to jump up 2 spots. They're still a bad team, probably talent-wise the second, if not the worst roster top to bottom in the NBA, but they're playing tough. Greg Popovich always makes sure that you play hard. No matter how good your team's win-loss record is, you guys are going to have to fly around, play tough defense, play good offense, and at the end of the day, the Spurs just don't have a very good roster top to bottom. 1 spot ahead of them is the Rockets at 27. No movement there. They've been fine. Not really much to report. Jabari Smith has some games where he looks good, has other games where he looks bad. Jalen Green has some games where he looks good, other games where he looks bad. Alperen Sengun has some games where he looks good, other games it looks like he's not even a starting caliber center in the NBA. Kevin Porter Jr. still takes way too many shots for my liking, and for some reason, I just don't understand why, Steven Silas lets him be the leader, the number one on the team, which he really shouldn't be, man. It's Kevin Porter Jr. He should be running with the twos. If they could pick up a Scoot Henderson or an Amon Thompson coming out of this year's draft class, let him be the point guard, let Kevin Porter Jr. rock off the bench, I think you really got something there. But that is a discussion for another day. 1 spot ahead of them is the Orlando Magic at 11-20 this week. 3-0, winning so many games against the Celtics that they've all of a sudden started a rivalry. Markelle Fultz is back, and look, this Magic were playing without a point guard for the first, month or 2 of the season because Markelle Fultz got hurt again. Cole Anthony got hurt again, and they had Franz Wagner being their point guard. So the fact that they're winning honestly isn't a surprise because they've been playing really tough without a point guard. Now that they finally have one, I could see this team making the playoffs realistically. Paulo Banchero is a beast. Bol has been showing some flashes. Jalen Suggs has been showing some flashes. I think top to bottom, Mo Wagner, Mo Bamba, Terrence Ross, Gary Harris, I think they have a solid collection of talent here that could be like a 6-7 seed out there in the Eastern Conference, especially with a lot of teams that are struggling. They play tough. Jamal Mosley, you got to give him credit. These guys will play your team tough. It doesn't matter if you're the Celtics, doesn't matter if you're the Pistons. They're going to go out and compete. And I think the Magic have a legitimate chance if they stay healthy, which is why I'm not going to change them at all positioning wise right now. They're probably going to jump up if they continue this hot streak. They beat the best team in the NBA 2 or 3 times in a row, whatever. So they're probably going to jump up if they continue to play well out of this tanking for Victor Wembanyama tier. But for now, I still have them at the same spot, top of this tier, 26 overall in the league, but a really impressive week of basketball. This next tier of teams is basically what I'm calling teams that are playing really bad basketball. And I have the Thunder at the bottom of this, even though they're 12-18. The way I look at it for the Thunder is if they didn't have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, they're probably, I'd say, a 5-win team at this point. Josh Giddey has been less than tremendous. The Jalen Williams, the J-Dub, the shooting guard, small forward, wing player out of Santa Clara, he's been a lot better than I expected. I have to give him 100% credit on that. The rest of the team, though, just isn't really impressing. They're still lacking a center since Chet Holmgren is out, and their starting center is probably what? Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, Mike Muscala. I mean, yikes. The point guard depth is pretty atrocious. Josh Giddey is out with injury again. SGA sat out, and they got completely blown out with a John Morant-less Grizzlies team. Alexei Pokusevski is still abysmally bad. Aaron Wiggins gets like 5 minutes a night. The Thunder minus Shai Gilgeous-Alexander are an embarrassment. But with him, they've got something. So SGA, as we all know, is something special. He's good enough to at least carry this team to not 500, but maybe a 400 or 300 win team, which is pretty good for a team that should probably be winning 5 or 10 games in the entire season. So, hey, if they start to win games, I'll be happy to put them up, jump them up, bump them up. If they're continuing to tank and they try to get another high draft pick in this year's draft, I'll drop them down back into this tanking for Victor Wembanyama tier. At the end of the day, the Thunder do have a solid collection of young talent, but young talent in the NBA does not translate to wins. One spot ahead of them is the Wizards, just another horrible, bad week for them. They're on, what, a 10-game losing streak right now, and it is what it is. They lost in embarrassing fashion to the Lakers, and that's kind of how their whole season has gone. Bradley Beal is a fine player, but obviously not a number one. And I just, every week, every year, it feels like the definition of insanity for the Wizards. They're just not a good franchise, and I don't think they try to be, which is the worst part of it all. Bulls right ahead of them at 23, and just another tough week for them. A couple of embarrassing losses, like at Timberwolves, they gave up 150 points. That's just unacceptable. 0-3 in the week. DeMar DeRozan is showing that this is the ceiling of a DeMar DeRozan-led team. Kind of good, not good enough to win games all the time, and sometimes not good enough to make the damn playoffs. That's frustrating. Zach LaVine has been really bad this season. Lonzo Ball out with that mysterious knee pain that he's going to be gone for probably the whole season. Get ready for that, because he was apparently the linchpin in this team being good versus bad. Who knew Lonzo Ball was the answer for the Chicago Bulls when he came over last season? And not much to say. It's been a really frustrating couple of weeks for the Chicago Bulls. And I got one tier up ahead of here. So the tier that we're in right now is the bad teams. Next tier up is teams that could be good, but they're just tremendously underperforming, which is, I mean, this has been a weird NBA season, if we're being completely honest. But at the bottom of this tier is the 500 Timberwolves, 15-15, 2-2 on the week. And they're honestly playing a little bit better with neither of their two centers. Not Karl Anthony Towns, not Rudy Gobert. Naz Reid is their starting center, and they're playing a little bit more of a modern brand of basketball. So it's kind of, I don't know how to explain this other than it's kind of hilarious that the Timberwolves try to go with the double big lineup that the Cavaliers are rocking. They go, oh man, we're having so much struggling on defense and struggling on offense, blah, 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 blah. And then they both go out with injuries. And then all of a sudden they have to play quick, fast, spread offense, and they start winning basketball games. D'Angelo Russell has been on a tear lately, and Anthony Edwards is playing point guard. Point ants might be the solution to many of this team's woes. Maybe you got something there. Maybe you don't. Maybe D'Lo comes back down to earth and starts playing horrible like he always does. Maybe Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns comes back. You got to get them integrated in the lineup, and that's where this whole team falls apart again. But for now, the Timberwolves, they may be a bright spot. They may be not. They're still 500. And as we saw with the Boston Celtics last year, there's always time to turn the NBA season around until at least March. So I'm not saying press the panic button in Minnesota yet. Chris Finch is going to have a lot on his hands. He's going to have to look at what's been working for the past few games, look at what hasn't been working for the previous games leading up to it, and saying, all right, maybe we need to stagger Karl Anthony Towns or Rudy Gobert's minutes even more. He mentioned, there's some quote where he said, oh, what we should do is put Karl Anthony Towns in the corner and let him shoot threes and space the floor. Holy shit, who would have thought of that? Anyway, coming up ahead of them is the Los Angeles Lakers. They're going to drop down 2 spots even though they had an impressive week. Guess what? Anthony Davis is hurt again. So what else is new? I think Darvin Ham is pressing some of the right buttons, especially for Russell Westbrook. He's been playing lights out for Russell Westbrook. They got away with a sneaky, funny, embarrassingly bad win against the Washington Wizards with like it was a kicked ball that wasn't called. And then LeBron just got some wide open dunks. I don't know what the hell happened that last game. But the Lakers are theoretically hot right now. That said, Anthony Davis is out. LeBron James is old as dirt. Russell Westbrook is Russ. And then what else do they have on the team? Dennis Schroeder, Austin Reeves. Are those guys really going to be carrying the team? I don't know. So for now, I still say the Lakers at 13-16 are underperforming. They're not as bad as they were at the beginning of the season. They were like 3-9, some abysmally bad record, but they're still in this sub 500. They should be one of the best teams in the Western Conference, and they're not because they're just such an embarrassingly bad constructed team. It's a problem, I don't think it's going to get fixed. That said, you can't argue with the Lakers winning a couple games, so here they are, 21st. Ahead of them is the Toronto Raptors, and initially I had them a little bit higher, but man, they've just been really bad lately. They're kind of in blow it up mode, yes or no question territory at 13-17, 0-3 in the week. Nothing is working. Now, should the Raptors blow it up? In my mind, yes, because I look at this roster top to bottom. I don't see any superstars. I barely see any stars. I mean, theoretically, you have OG Anunoby, good two-way player. Pascal Siakam, great two-way player. Fred VanVleet, great offensive threat, undersized. And Scotty Barnes, who knows what he's going to be on a game-to-game basis. The depth is a whole bunch of 6'8" power forwards who can or can't shoot, depending on what day it is. And Gary Trent Jr. and Malachi Flynn are your undersized scorers. I don't love the roster construction. I like Nick Nurse, but I'm starting to question his credentials, the lack of depth that he uses, his rotations. He runs freaking 6, 7, and 8-man rotations in November and December. Like, you're grinding your players into the dirt, and this isn't even close to the playoffs yet. So I'm not loving what's going on with the Raptors. I don't love the roster construction. I don't love that they don't have a superstar on their team that's going to put them over the top. The NBA is a league of superstars, and Scotty Barnes just ain't it. Now, I like him. I loved him coming out of the draft process. Some of his flaws are starting to be a little more glaring than others. At the end of the day, should the Raptors blow it up? Yes. Will they blow it up? Probably not, but you never know what Masai Ujiri is capable of. And the next tier above is basically the rest of the teams in the NBA. I call this the what the fuck is the NBA right now tier, because every one of these teams is theoretically competing for an NBA championship, which is the weird spot that the NBA is in right now. Bottom of this tier is the Miami Heat. They effectively jumped out of the underperforming tier with a couple of good wins. That said, they were winning against the worst teams in the NBA. Like, who did they play? So we'll start here versus the Clippers. They won 115-110. That was without Kawhi. The Clippers are always just a huge question mark. Is Kawhi going to play or not? That determines how good of a basketball team they are. Then they lose to the Spurs, which is embarrassing. Then they beat the Pacers, but look at the score, 87-82. That's not what you want to write home about. Beat the Thunder 110-108. That's not what you want to write home about. And then you beat the Rockets 111-108. These games are just way more closer than they should be. And they beat the Spurs by 10. So what are you going? 4, 5, and 1 here on this really weird string of games. I just can't put the Heat any higher than where they are right now, which is a barely 500 team, 16-15, 4-0, beating a bunch of bad basketball teams. Can they turn it around? Sure. What is their peak? Probably the 3 or 4 seed with Jimmy Butler playing 40 minutes a night. Still need to figure out their center depth. Still need to figure out their big wing depth. Still need to see if Tyler Hero is going to be that dude or not for the team. Coming up ahead of them is the Indiana Pacers, coming on a little bit of a tough streak right now. They went 1-3 on the week, and we're starting to see the limitations of the roster that they have. Tyrese Halliburton is a problem. I'm starting to get frustrated how many weird step back contested 3-point jumpers that he's taken. Jalen Smith has been really bad. Some of the Rick Carlisle rotations are a little frustrating to watch. Like, why is Ben Mathurin still coming off the bench? I get it. He's maybe your bench spark, your bench scorer. That's fine if you want to put him there, but still play him 30 minutes a night. But then don't sub him out in the fourth quarter until there's like 1 minute left in the game so he can play some clutch freaking moments. I'm sick of having Andrew Nembhard being this weird off-ball shooting guard hybrid with Tyrese Halliburton that just doesn't work. If you want to play Andrew Nembhard, great, have him take TJ McConnell's minutes or play him off ball with TJ. Yeah, you'll have defensive issues, but Andrew Nembhard should not be in your starting lineup for the closing minutes. I know he hit that one big 3 against the Lakers, but he's just not that good of a player, at least not yet. Put in Ben Mathurin and look at this lineup of Tyrese Halliburton, Buddy Hield, Ben Mathurin, Aaron Nesmith, or O'Shea Brissett, whoever you want at the 4, and then Miles Turner. That's a much better lineup than having Andrew Nembhard, Buddy Hield, and Tyrese Halliburton. Like, what kind of defense do you expect is going to happen with this lineup? It's just, anyway, Rick Carlisle has always been a little bit of a question mark as a head coach, but you can't critique him because of that run he went on with the Dallas Mavericks, Dirk Nowitzki. One spot ahead of them is the Hawks, and it's finally time to bring them down 15-15, 1-2 in the week, and it's starting to be a little bit of doom and gloom in Atlanta. Now, of course, they lost DeJounte Murray. If he comes back from injury and they start winning basketball like they were at the beginning of the season, they'll jump right back up, but they're just in a weird spot. We kind of know what they are. They're Trae Young, running the pick and roll, Clint Capella catching lobs, DeAndre Hunter occasionally having a good game, and then getting bailed out by Bogdanovich. If he doesn't go off and go crazy, they're probably not going to win a lot of games. There isn't a lot of playmaking left on this team. There isn't a lot of depth on this team. They kind of struggle unless Trae Young goes Trae and he gets a little bit of help. Kevin Huerter's not even here to shoot lights out for them anymore. The Hawks are just in a weird spot, and they definitely need to make some changes at this trade deadline if they want to be a legitimately competitive title team. Otherwise, they can be sitting right here in this mediocre tier of teams that apparently every single team in the NBA is stuck in. 16th is the Warriors, coming down a spot as well, even though they went 1-3 on the week without Steph Curry. That Jordan Poole game was unreal. He dropped, 43 points? If Jordan Poole plays like that, the Warriors are going to be great this season, but he's been so freakily inconsistent, and I just don't understand the Steve Kerr rotations. That being said, he's a, 4-time NBA champion head coach, so I'm not going to question him, and I'm not going to say me sitting on my fucking couch knows more than Steve Kerr. I just wish they would figure out a way to run with their young players a little bit more. You got James Wiseman, number 2 overall pick. You got Jonathan Kuminga, number 7 overall pick, number 1 overall prospect coming out of that class initially. You got Moses Moody, good 3D player. And for some reason, you're playing JaMychal Green ahead of James Wiseman and Anthony Lamb ahead of Jonathan Kuminga. It just makes no sense to me. Warriors are struggling right now. Steph Curry's going to be gone for the foreseeable future. One spot ahead of them is the aforementioned Los Angeles Clippers. And look, their win-loss record is good, 18-14, 3-1 on the week. They're starting to integrate Kawhi Leonard. They're starting to integrate Paul George in the lineup. They just don't play them on back-to-backs. So on any given night, Kawhi's going to go, I don't want to play. And then they lose because they don't have anybody on their team. They've got great depth, don't get me wrong, for role players, but these aren't guys that you can ask more from other than maybe Reggie Jackson. Occasionally he'll give you a good game. When Kawhi and PG are out, you got Luke Kennard, Jason Preston, Nicholas Batum, Robert Covington, Ivica Zubac. Who else is going to make plays for them? John Wall isn't looking all that good. I remember all the comparisons were like, oh my God, do you want John Wall or Russell Westbrook? Wow, John Wall is so much better. Well, he's really not been. He's fine as like a secondary playmaker coming out the bench, but other than that, All that being said, it remains to be seen how well the Clippers are going to integrate Kawhi Leonard into the starting lineup. That said, the NBA season is a marathon, not a sprint, so don't get all freaked out that they're not winning every single basketball game right now. I remember I had them as the number 2 seed in the Western Conference behind the Warriors if Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are healthy. So we just got to wait and see, let them figure things out, and hope that Kawhi Leonard plays basketball, as always. Coming in ahead of them is the Utah Jazz, knocking them down a spot, not so much for what they've done, but more for what other teams are doing right now. And the Jazz just continue to win games on effort, shooting, and magic. There is no other way to describe it, but Jordan Clarkson has been one of the most insane players to watch in the NBA right now. Malik Beasley has been streaky good still. Mike Conley. Oh my God, Mike Conley. His impact isn't even on just the offensive end. Sometimes he's on the defensive end too, and he'll just lock down somebody. I saw one of the games like versus the Pelicans. He had 5 points, but he came up with 4 clutch plays on defense. The Jazz are just such a fun team to watch, such a fun team to root for, and talent-wise, they are atrocious. Just a whole bunch of role players who probably shouldn't get starting minutes out of maybe Lauri Markkanen. And to step away, was there anything else about the Jazz? They're a fun team. Piss and vinegar, all that good stuff. All right, next up is the Portland Trailblazers, also going to fall down 2 spots. Nothing about them. They haven't been playing great basketball. They haven't been playing horrible basketball. They went 3-1 on the week. When Damian Lillard is healthy and all cylinders are clicking, they're a pretty good basketball team. Still not sure how good they really are. How is that defensive pairing going to work with Anthony Simons and Damian Lillard? Nurkic isn't a great defender of his own. Imagine if they had Rudy Gobert instead of Yusuf Nurkic. I wonder how good they would be. Jeremy Grant has been balling out. Josh Hart is the best rebounding forward in the history of basketball. Their bench is okay. Shaedon Sharpe has shown some promise. Just a whole bunch of question marks for the Blazers. How good are they really? Nuggets coming in 1 spot ahead of them. Also falling down 2 spots. Not much to say. The Nuggets are really good record-wise, but I've been struggling to put the Nuggets higher up on this tier list. It's because of games versus the Lakers, where Mike Malone makes head-scratching rotations. Michael Porter Jr. still doesn't play basketball because he's more injury-prone than Anthony Davis. He just hurts himself off camera. Jamal Murray is streaky right now. He's still getting right, and Joker can't play defense. He put up a ridiculous stat line. 40 points with, 27 rebounds or some shit? Holy crap. And 10 assists on top of that. So when Joker goes Joker, I mean, obviously the Nuggets can beat anybody in the NBA. But on a night-to-night basis, I just don't know if they have enough help. Their depth is pretty atrocious. and they just refuse to not play DeAndre Jordan. Can we please, for the love of fuck, get rid of DeAndre Jordan? I'm so sick of watching him offer you nothing offensively. He doesn't even give you effort anymore. I couldn't tell you how long he was just standing around, not doing anything, missing open passes, not shooting, obviously, barely setting screens. I don't know what DeAndre Jordan offers to the team and why he gets minutes ahead of guys like Zeke Naji. Just head scratching to me. So the Nuggets, theoretically, they could be one of the better teams in the NBA. Record-wise, they are one of the better teams in the NBA. But if you look at their point differential, it's not all that impressive. They win a lot of close games and lose a lot of ugly games. So, yes, the Nuggets should be better record-wise. I just don't trust them right now. If they continue to win these weird games, I'm sure we'll be able to put them ahead of teams like the Kings and the Suns. But for now, I'm just not in on the Nuggets train yet. I'm not on the Nuggets bandwagon. I'd love to be, but at the end of the day, Nikola Jokic is always going to be defensive liability, and their depth is a major concern, along with the head coach of Mike Malone. Is he the right guy for the job? One spot ahead of them is the Dallas Mavericks, and I'm finally buying in a little bit. They're jumping up 5 spots. I don't love the team, of course, but Luka is very good. You saw how bad they are without Luka. So I think with Luka, somewhere around this 10th best team in the NBA is where the Mavericks belong, and I've been kind of shitting on them a little bit more than I probably should have, so that's why we're doing a little correction here, jumping up 5 spots. Spencer Dinwiddie is a fine secondary playmaker. Kemba Walker had his game of the year, and he's probably going to suck for the rest of the season, but hey, he had that one game. And then Luka's great. Will they just play Christian Wood? There's so many tweets that are just all over Twitter where they're like, man, this pairing of Christian Wood and Luka Doncic is really good. But they should do that more often because Christian Wood is a good basketball player. I don't know what it is in Jason Kidd's head where he's like, nah, I'm going to play Christian Wood coming off the bench. He needs to get into the rotation. He needs to play defense. He needs to understand the system. Let him play freaking basketball. Oh my God. Enough talking about the Mavericks. We know what they are. Pretty good team. Do they have the top end potential to win a championship? Yet remains to be seen. One spot ahead of them is the New York Knicks, and I'm making a major correction on them. They're jumping up 12 spots. I all but counted them out last week. They went on I think 3 or 4 game win streak last week, but then Jalen Brunson twists his ankle, and I was like, oh boy, even when they win games, bad stuff happens to the Knicks. I think Jalen Brunson is going to miss a couple weeks. Well, he bounces back, comes back right back the next game, and he's been balling out. He's been everything they needed. Julius Randle, for all of his faults and flaws, clutch free throw shooter, knocked down like 6 free throws in a row to close out one of their games. Their defense is flying around. Mitchell Robinson is playing like a beast. Emmanuel Quickley has been really good for them. Just top to bottom, the Knicks are playing really good basketball. That said, I think it's unsustainable. I think they fall down a couple spots as the season continues to progress because what Tom Thibodeau does is he says the regular season is the most important, and he grinds his players down, and they have to win these really close, tough, contested, competitive games in December. So when March and April comes around, the team is tired. The team is sick of Tom Thibodeau screaming and yelling to the point where he doesn't have any voice. That said, good week for the New York Knicks, 7-game win streak, and you can't disrespect Jalen Brunson anymore. It looks like that free agent signing has been everything that the Knicks have needed for the last, God, how many years have they needed a point guard? 10, 15? Love what the Knicks are doing right now, jumping up 12 spots. One spot ahead of them is the Sacramento Kings. They're falling down 3 spots. I had them really high because they were playing some really good basketball, and they're kind of coming back down to earth. They're hitting that grind of the regular season. This stretch of the season will test Coach Brown's legitimacy as a good NBA coach versus somebody who can start the season hot, but then come up short like a Steve Clifford. I like De'Aaron Fox, not so much Sabonis. I like the roster construction. Malik Monk has been great. Keegan Murray's been better than expected. Harrison Barnes, always the consummate professional. The Kings are a well put together team, and they're playing good basketball. One spot ahead of them is the Phoenix Suns, also going to be coming down 4 spots as well. Their dominance as the number 1 team in the Western Conference is starting to come down, and the Suns are always going to be good to some extent because Monty Williams is a really rock steady, solid head coach. Chris Paul is okay. Devin Booker will drop 57 on you on any given night. But they're just struggling with injuries right now, struggling with the fact that they're not as good as they used to be, and they need to make a move at some point to really see if they can put this team over the top. Cam Johnson still out with that injury. Jay Crowder still refuses to play, so they're really maybe 1.5 pieces away. Imagine if they could trade for Kevin Durant right now. That would be really nice to see. But we have one tier coming up ahead of the Phoenix Suns who are falling, and this is the tier of teams that are legitimately competitive for a championship right now. Obviously, the season is long. This is subject to change, but coming in at the bottom of this list is the Brooklyn Nets, who are on, I think, a 9-game win streak right now. Just a ridiculous stretch of games for them. They're playing good-ish defense. They're playing great offense. Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant have been unreal. Ben Simmons has been playing basketball games. I know. And they're just really solid top to bottom. That hiring of Jacques Vaughn, or more firing of Steve Nash, has been the answer for this team, at least to start the season, and they've been playing excellent basketball. Now I'm seeing some of the same things start to rear their ugly heads. Their defense leaves you wanting. Nick Claxton, he's a nice defender, good weak side blocker, but just doesn't have enough bricks in his back pocket to really compete with the Joel Embiids and Nikola Jokic's of the NBA. So if they ever go up against the Sixers in the playoffs, for example, they're going to have issues. They don't have a lot of 3 and D players. So Yuta Watanabe is he's probably their best defender right now, which is a bit of a problem. TJ Warren will come and go. Edmund Sumner, he's okay. He's a baller, but he's not that good of a basketball player. And then you have Seth Curry, Patty Mills, Joe Harris. None of those guys play defense. Bit of a problem, as well as the fact that Kyrie Irving won't or can't play defense. Kevin Durant will play defense, but his role is to be the best player in the NBA. So how good is this team really going to be when it comes to playoff time? I'm not sure yet, but they're playing damn good basketball, and we have to give them some respect, jumping up 2 spots to the number 7 seed. 1 spot ahead of them is the 76ers, also turning their season around. James Harden coming back from that injury has been great. Joel Embiid has been Joel Embiid, probably in the race for MVP finally after having a really rough start to the season, and they're still waiting on Tyrese Maxey to come back. PG Tucker's been a great pickup for them. Tobias Harris has been playing some pretty good basketball. DeAnthony Melton, and all those calls for firing Doc Rivers are starting to go away. That said, they're only 4 games over 500 right now, or I guess 2 games at 16 and 12. I'm not loving it, but they're starting to roll. And look, the 76ers were my preseason pick for winning the NBA championship. Joel Embiid winning NBA Finals MVP and MVP. So if the 76ers are good, I'll take that as confirmation bias. I think the 76ers should be the best team in the Eastern Conference. Will they be? Probably not. 1 spot ahead of them is the Memphis Grizzlies, and they're jumping up 2 spots. I'm still hesitant to put them as the best team in the NBA. I think they're a little bit constructed like the Warriors were last year, and the Warriors went on to win a championship. So that's no fault. That's no knock against them. But they have Ja Morant, their superstar, their best player in the NBA. Their team completely relies on him, completely built around him. Around him are a bunch of pretty good to really good players, but are they superstars? No. Is there a LeBron James, Dwayne Wade thing going on here? No. So when Ja Morant inevitably goes out with some sort of ankle injury because he's jumping 50 feet in the air, then the rest of the team has to pick up the slack. Tyus Jones gets pushed into more of an extended role. Jaren Jackson Jr. gets asked to score more. Desmond Bane, Dillon Brooks. Is Desmond Bane back yet? I can't even. He's been gone for so long. Yeah, he's still going to be gone for a few more weeks. So they're still missing Desmond Bane, and then the rest of the roster is fine. I like it. I don't love it. You know, Santi Aldama, Steven Adams, David Roddy, they're all young players that kind of fill their roles, but I'm not sure they're going to be able to help the team when asked to do too much. I worry about their defense outside of Dillon Brooks and Jaren Jackson Jr. I'm not 100% sold on Taylor Jenkins. So as always, the Grizzlies are good in the regular season. How are they going to become playoff time? How are they going to be if Ja Morant has to sit out for an extended period of time? Yet to be seen. And of course, Desmond Bane needs to come back because he is a stud. 1 spot ahead of the Grizzlies is the Cleveland Cavaliers, going to jump up a spot. Just a really impressive basketball team. Donovan Mitchell is a great basketball player. I don't know how else to say it. Donovan Mitchell is a great basketball player. The dude is occasionally an MVP in this league. He just gets you buckets. He's clutch. He closes teams out in the 4th. I think if the Cavs didn't have Donovan Mitchell right now, they might be a 500 team. That is just how many times Donovan Mitchell has come in and single-handedly pulled this team up and said, we're going to win this damn game. I loved seeing him against the Pacers. Love seeing him against, God, all the other teams that they play. Cavalier basketball is good to watch. 1 spot ahead of them is the Pelicans, and they're actually going to fall down a spot after having a really rough week, 0-3. I just think they went too high on their emotions trying to beat the Suns. They're trying to build this rivalry, even though the Suns kind of whooped them in 6. I know it was a competitive series, but the Suns were a better basketball team back then. The Pelicans are trying to be a good team. They're trying to be top dogs, and I respect the hustle. I respect the grind. But the NBA season is long and tedious. So lock in, settle in, get Brandon Ingram back, please, for the love of God, and let's see this Pelicans team continue to roll. For now, Zion Williamson is playing great. All the pieces are starting to come together. Just need BI and need to figure out what you're going to do with Jonas Valanciunas. Do you want to play him or don't? Do you think he's a good player? Is he good enough to be a starter? Or are you just going to bench him, cut him, not let him play in clutch minutes? Who knows? But the Pelicans are in a really good spot right now, playing really good basketball. Nothing but respect for their team. And one spot ahead of them is the Bucks. Best record in the NBA right now. They're just continuing to roll. Doesn't matter if Giannis plays. Doesn't matter if Chris Middleton plays. Doesn't matter if Drew Holiday plays. Now, are they the best team in the NBA? No. Should they be? No. They always have these questions because Giannis can't shoot, which means their next best player is either Drew Holiday or Chris Middleton, and those guys are just super streaky. Some nights they'll score 3 points, other nights they'll score 33 points. And it really is just, that's the separation between the superstars in the NBA, like the Kevin Durants, who are just going to go out and get you a consistent 20 to 30 to 40 every single night, and the Chris Middletons, who will show up and give you 3. And you're not going to win those games when Giannis can't shoot. Giannis has to go lights out from the free throw line and just run over 17 people a game so that he can get his points. And then when you need a bucket, Drew's got to make some clutch play here or there. So it's always frustrating to watch Bucks basketball because Giannis can't shoot. Rest of the team, though, doing great. They're rolling. They're one of the best teams in the NBA. No complaints. It is what it is. That's the Bucks formula for success. It worked once. Is it going to work again? Probably not, but they're still a really good team top to bottom. And of course, the Celtics are the best team in the NBA still after a 1-3 week, losing to the Magic a lot. And look, I know it's tempting to knock the Celtics down, say, oh, they're only the 2 or 3 seed now, after a string of bad performances against a team that we all thought were tanking in the Orlando Magic. But this is the grind of the regular season. Michael Jordan literally would make beefs up in his head with people that never happened, like a fucking lunatic, to motivate himself throughout the season. It's a grind because that's what it is. I still place them head and shoulders above all the other teams in the East, and the West is too busy beating the crap out of each other to have a single superpower elevate. So we're in that stretch where it's time to define how good these players and coaches are. The NBA season is long. It's full of adversity. Will the Celtics prevail? And that's going to do it for this week's Power Rankings. Let me know what your thoughts are, what you agree with, what you disagree with, and I'll catch you in the next one.